During the previous video, I introduced the idea of production possibility boundary and linked it to the idea of opportunity cost. In this one, what I want to do is to further our understanding of these production possibility boundaries, or production possibility frontiers, or production possibility curves. Three different names, they're exactly the same thing. Let's just build it up again. Now, on the last video, I put on the axes goods and services. What I'm now going to put, just for a change, is consumer goods and capital goods. Okay, just very quickly, I'll explain the difference between these two different things. Now, obviously, a good, as we said before, is something which is tangible. Okay, it's visible. It's something you can hold in your hand. So a pen, for example, is a good. A consumer good is something that households buy. Remember economic agent households, where consumers, we buy things. When I buy toys for my children, for example, they're a consumer good. The clothes I'm wearing, the shoes I'm wearing are consumer goods. The TV in my house is a consumer good. Capital goods, well, capital is one of the factors of production. Capital is a man-made aid of production. So, for example, if I was to walk into a factory making clothes, there'll be people working at sewing machines. So the capital good would be the sewing machine. On a Friday night, my wife might order for the kids a Domino's pizza. There'll be an oven inside Domino's pizza which is cooking the pizza. That would be a capital good. Going back to my children's toys, which are consumer goods, the factory over in China probably that makes the toys, well, that is a capital good. It's something that is used to make the toys. So in other words, what capital goods do, they are used, they go for that production process to make consumer goods. Now, what I'm going to go for is just a production possibility boundary like this. So remember, on a straight line production possibility boundary, I have a constant opportunity cost. So as I claw resources away from making capital goods towards making consumer goods, they're as equally good at making anything they want it to be. If I add the curve line, I've got that changing opportunity cost. The idea that if you pull people away from making one thing to make another thing, they might not be as good at making the other thing. There'll be a changing opportunity cost. Okay, now remember, the production possibility boundary measures the maximum number or combinations of output that a country can produce with the level of resources available to it. It's the factor of endowment. Okay, now unfortunately, most economies will very rarely be producing to their maximum. Let's just call this CO1 and CA1. Now the simple idea here is that we have inefficiency. Okay, the economy is not producing as much as it could do. Look at that. It's CO1, CA1. This green arrow shows the gap between what we are producing and what we could produce. Okay, we've got unused resources. Resources go into waste. And if I were to put the cross here, 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 basically anywhere inside that triangle, and I've got inefficiency. I'm not producing as much as what I could do. So X's show inefficiency. And think about what that means. I haven't really got an opportunity cost. So for example, if I was on this cross, I can produce more consumer goods and I can make more capital goods. In other words, I haven't got to sacrifice one thing for another. Okay, now if I was to operate on the line, let's just call it point E. E, 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 anywhere you want it to be on that line. E shows efficiency. Okay, now think about what that means. That means I'm using my resources to produce the maximum possible output that can be produced. Okay, there's no inefficiency at all. If I'm not being inefficient, I must be efficient. Now, when I'm being efficient, I do have an opportunity cost. Okay, so for one of an example, if I was to start off here, making mainly consumer goods and fairly few capital goods. The only way that I could make more capital goods, moving here for example, so I'm making more capital goods, would be to sacrifice some consumer goods. So what I've got here is an opportunity cost. So when you're efficient, you want to make more of one thing, you'll have to give up something, unfortunately. Now there is one other thing I want to show on this line. Okay, let's call this point Y. And Y could be there, it could be here, it could be there, it could be there, it could be there. We call this in economics, at the moment anyway, unattainable. Basically, all it means is we lack the resources at the moment to produce that level of output. We haven't got the right level of factor endowment, in other words, the factors of production to produce to this point. At the moment, it's an unattainable output point. Okay, but moving on, the thing about unattainable output points is all it really means at the moment it's unattainable. Because what production possibility boundaries will do over time is move outwards. Now, they might move out like this, or they might move out like that. They might move out like that. Don't have to move parallel. Okay, now for a production possibility boundary to move outwards, basically what is happening is that our factor endowment has increased. Or we've got better resources. So the idea will be for the production possibility boundary to move outwards, our factors of production have either increased, in other words, we've got more land, we've got more labour, we've got more capital, we've got more enterprise, or the resources that we've got have got better. So it could be that labour has been better trained, it's got better skills. It could be that the quality of capital has increased, become more efficient over time. Okay, now what we can use this idea to think about now is the idea of economic growth. If I go for this production possibility boundary again, let's imagine I start off here. Let's think about this as consumer goods and capital goods again. Now what economists love to do is to measure how big an economy is. And once we've measured it, it's basically looking at the GDP of the country, the gross domestic product. And all it really is, it's the value of what's produced. And we normally look at this on an annual basis. So for every year, for the British economy, we can look at how big it was by the GDP. And all it basically means we've done is we've added up the value of what has been produced across the country. So we look at the land, the labour, the capital and the enterprise, and we say, right, okay, well, across all them different resources, what has been produced is worth X number of pounds. And that will give us the size of the British economy. Now remember, this cross is inefficient because I'm not operating on side the production possibility boundary. If next year the cross is there, what that means? I'm now producing more capital goods and I'm producing more consumer goods. Now we call this actual economic growth. And what it basically means is that we're producing more. The value of what we produce is higher than what it was in the previous year. The economy has actually grown. Now economists and economists love it when this happens. What it basically means is that the country has got more output. It's producing more, which means there's more stuff to go around for me and you to buy to meet our wants and needs. It should, in theory, raise our economic welfare. Now, what economists can also do, as we looked at a few minutes ago, is this. We call this potential economic growth. And all this now means is that the economy's got a bigger potential. Its factor endowment has increased. We've got more resources and or we've got better resources. We can now produce more consumer and more capital goods. Okay, now think about what we said before earlier on as well. This point here, why? Unattainable. We lack the resources, but as The economy has potential economic growth. Over time, that Y can become attainable. Okay, so what economies really want to see happening every single year, they want to see potential economic growth and they want to see actual economic growth. The key difference is potential. All it really means is if basically we've got more resources. In theory, we can now produce more than what we could do before. Actual, well, it basically means that we are producing more than what we were before. So actual against potential economic growth.